Hello and welcome to Describing Statistic Everyone. I am Nicolas Sabarain and this is my colleague David Reyes.
Today we are going to show you some statistics about the history of the coffee industry in Colombia through some diagrams like the line chart and the pie chart.
But first, let us tell you a little about the importance of coffee to Colombia.
The coffee industry was the most important sector during the 70s. It represented the first income of foreign currencies to the country. It promoted the employment among the rural population and boosted the different industries' development.
During this time, Colombia was the second biggest exporter of coffee, just behind Brazil, and the biggest exporter of soft coffee in the world. It's because of this that Colombia earns its fame as a coffee-growing country. Unfortunately, things seem to have changed during the past 40 years.
So now we'll see the charts so you can make your own conclusions.
The first chart is a line graph. It represents the different sectors' participation over Colombia's total exports. And as we can see, coffee had a participation of 60% in 1970, whereas the non-traditional has a 30% and the oil a 9%. Corn has just a little piece with 1%. Coffee and non-traditional fluctuated for the next 10 years, changing between 60% and 45%, and the 30% and 45% respectively. However, in 1981, when coffee and non-traditional were leveled off, oil started to increase with a few fluctuations over the years. This caused a fall over the non-traditional going from 46% to 25% in 1986. Despite of this, non-traditional started to recover, reaching its highest point in 2002 with almost 56%. At the same time, coffee has the biggest fall in its history, going from 51% in 1986 to 6% in 2004. Coal showed a steady increase from 1% to 10% between 1970 and 2004. Finally, non-traditional fell again in 2002, reaching a 39% in 2 years. In this chart, coffee showed a steady decrease throughout the years, finishing the 2012 with a 4%, whereas coal fluctuated between 12% and 16%. Oil kept growing, reaching the top with a 53%. Finally, non-traditional died after a brief recovery to 30%. If we compared the percentages between 1970 and 2012, we can see that coffee has been replaced by the oil as the most exported product of Colombia. In 1970, they represented the 60% and 9% respectively, but in 2012, oil grew until 54%, whereas coffee died dramatically until 4%.
Colombia exports almost the whole production of coffee, so now we'll see the performance on the total exports. This line graph shows the exports value in millions of dollars, and the first thing that comes to mind is that the country's total exports have rocketed from 1970 to 2004. Non-traditional grew steadily with a few fluctuations, whereas oil grew with bigger fluctuation. Coal increased a little in comparison, reaching almost 2,000 millions in the last year. But what is most important is the coffee behavior. It fluctuated fewer than 2,000 million, but at the end fell over 1,000 million. Unlike other sectors, coffee never grew in value, not even taking into account variables like inflation. The 2008 crisis had a big effect on each sector value between 2005 and 2012, decreasing the total exports. The most affected sectors were oil and non-traditional, who stopped their growing. It is possible to see the oil influence on the exports, since their behavior are very similar. In 2009, oil recovered its growing tendency, boosting the total value of the exports, while the other sectors remained without change. Coffee stayed at a low value, unlike coal, which had a steady increase through all the period. If we take a look to the exported volume, we can see that even when it decreased, it didn't affect the FOB value. Coffee reached its highest point in 1991 with more than 16,000 bags exported. However, it dramatically dipped from 1992 to 1995. Then it fluctuated and finally fell over 60,000 bags in 2012.
According to the graph, we can see that the coffee industry has lost its place as the largest exported in the country and has been replaced by the oil industry.
This could be caused by many reasons, like the oil profitability in the market or the fluctuation of the coffee prices.
Thank you for this presentation and see you the next opportunity.